welcome to this new Tech Captains episode. So today with Gareth, we welcome Mickey Alon live from California, a serial entrepreneur with multiple exits, who today is Chief Product and Technology Officer at VidMob, a creative effectiveness platform for enterprise marketers, whatever that means. So maybe before we dive into your successful entrepreneurial career, Mickey, can you tell us more about VidMob?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me first. Really glad to be here in this podcast. About VidMob, we have an AI and machine learning platform that helps marketers, brand managers, advertisers better understand the creative that they basically is submitting. So basically, what the platform does is marrying two aspects: the creative elements of your assets with the performance together. So you can really build better engaging content for your customers. And we use a lot of computer vision to understand that. Anywhere from seeing what elements appear in the creative, what type of emotion, messaging, and so forth. Our client wants to make sure that they kind of strive towards creative excellence. It means they adhere to best practices, and there's a lot of art and science into that. Like, how do you create engaging content that users continue to watch and you drive the right goal and KPIs and objective you want to drive with this creative, whether it's awareness or conversion and driving sales.
So it's really the analytics of what's happening in the video in terms of like the voice, the speaking when people drop, etc. If I understand correctly, is it limited to a specific platform? Is it like YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, something else?
We support more than 13 different platforms, all the big ones that you just mentioned, out of the box, instantly. And we're one of the things we do and invest a lot is like creating more and more models to understand the creative. So it's beyond just like saying, oh, actually we're seeing a dog there, but what is kind of the overall story? What's the emotion? What's the timing of things? Do you present, for example, the timing also impacts that as well, or what's the number of elements that you create and number of words that show up. So there's a lot of like best practices that you want to apply just to drive media efficiency. And I think that is like we're kind of trying to expose marketers to the other side of optimization. Usually, most of the solutions out there is optimizing the targeting, the audiences. But nobody's like really looking at the creative part, which is the interesting part, and that requires a lot of understanding and a lot of analysis.
Okay.
And it's just like really, pretty interesting to see how it works.
And I see that in your opening sentence you say that you're doing AI, but can you demonstrate to listeners that you're doing AI and not API calls to ChatGPT?
Absolutely. I think, for example, we just released the diversity and inclusion model. We understand about all your creative, what is the split between like looking at different skin tones and things like that, or gender and age. And this is where we are training a model that is like we're sending all these assets, we're measuring, we have a reinforcement learning mechanism we do it with, and we eventually deploy this model that is becoming part of the media analysis. So we have a lot of different unique models that we build proprietary for us, because it's like perspective that brand managers and advertisers wants to learn about the creative. So each one is kind of a perspective that a human being can do, but it's not really scalable to go
Yeah.
through millions of
Do,
assets.
do, do do you think that this AI aspect is actually, I mean, because of the explosion in the past 12 months of all those tools, like how do you see like the technology of VidMob actually being a differentiator? And like, because obviously the competition of all those other availabilities or Google Bard or all everybody offering that they will be like copycats of your tools, leveraging API calls that are not native technologies.
That's a great question. I think at first it's today in every solution, the competition is way beyond just specific features or a specific model. We also use obviously other models as well. Google, Amazon offer a bunch of models we're using. We just also optimize them as well. We're going to expose API for other developers to go use. I believe the competition now is also like how quickly do you adapt? What's the accuracy level? And also the fact that we do hold one place of all the data from all these platforms with all these elements, which is not trivial. If you think about analytics and suddenly you have like terabytes of data and like someone needs to just go into a dashboard and see their assets across all the platforms, that is not trivial. But I feel today SaaS companies are in competition to innovate faster, deliver value faster. And if you see a model out there that you can use, you need to show that you can actually tie that to your platform very quickly. And in a few weeks, it's going to be available for clients. But it goes down to also how valuable and unique is your data, and which we do invest in that a lot because then your training set is actually bigger and bigger. And we have the biggest creative data in the market, which we use to train our models. And by the way, when you think about models, it's like features; they have life cycle, right? So the fact that we have more data help us train them and retrain them, and basically every few weeks or month, if we see a model is getting less accurate, we can actually deploy a new version of that.
As I understand it, you're helping advertisers create ads and create content that will engage with the audiences better. So if I let's say for instance I'm a dog food company and I'm producing an ad to sell my dog food, and maybe I've got a dog running through a field. Can I have multiple versions of that? Could I have one that's got a Labrador, one that's got a different type of a dog or whatever, different color of a dog, and then you could actually serve different versions of those ads to different people? Can it be targeted like that? Is that the sort of use of it?
Are you describing something is more similar to kind of dynamic content like DCO? And it's not what we don't do the survey,
Yeah.
we do the analysis
Okay.
of that.
Okay.
And we basically make sure that you understand which of those assets and why actually it actually performs better than the others. I believe that it's creating those and too many variations is going to be pretty costly. And like in big brands, there's a lot of meaning to each thing. I do see that the cost of creating high quality production is getting lower. So you actually, with all the generative AI initiatives, you're able to um, create more variations as well, and experiment more. But the trick is to really make it more data driven, get that input in and read the signals and understand what is actually working better. Because you're not going to just like try to have like 100 different dogs, and there's in a video it can be so many elements, so you get exponential.
Yeah.
But the concept, like the core elements that do work, is where we're gonna play in, and just give you that feedback and iterate. And by the way, there's also a decay for creative. As some there's a trend, and we monitor that trend because we do have all the cross brand and industry data, so we can show you, hey, it looks like the taste of people is changing as well. So
Okay.
it's also an input. You want to be more recent as well when you analyze those.
Yeah, it's interesting too. You just reminded me of something so interesting this past week. The company I'm at, where we do a lot of AI stuff, and we're starting to do some work. We're actually building 2 products now that using LLMs. And what's actually interesting is I was looking at trying to do a cost analysis. And in the 3 months since I originally costed a feature, I was looking at the token cost for Bedrock, and they've gone down 50% in the space of like 3 months. It's amazing. So then so you're on the one side of it. You're on the side of the analysis, trying to create the best ads possible. But do you think then we're quite a long way from a place where maybe these video ads are created on the fly and micro targeted using AI? I mean, do you think that's somewhere it'll get to eventually?
We are getting there very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Basically, the prompt is becoming the creative, right? It's like you can actually produce the prompt. It will actually generate the text to image, text to video. Um, we believe that our data will feed those prompts, because eventually it's about also precision.
Yeah.
You need to, especially, you need to make sure that this is your IP. You need to make sure that actually it knows what to construct. So I think we see a revolution where you're going from like creative scarcity to creative abundance, because generative AI allows you to just very quickly go and produce different types of ideas. We are about to launch a Adobe plugin that will basically make our first the way we analyze your assets pre-flight inside where you are. If it's Adobe After Effects, for example, you're going to be able to see how to optimize your video right there based on our data and input. Will tell you how to, what will probably most likely work, what less, if you adhere to best practices. But we do plan to also integrate with the other generative AI tools like Firefly that will close the loop and actually even show you different ideas of different videos. I think the randomness in technology is like where I think as human beings, we need some time to give and we need to think outside the box to start doing experiments. And I think generative AI can give us a lot of great ideas instantly. And I think with our data and Firefly or Midjourney and all those tools, we'll be able just to show you that. I think over time it will mature to really adhere to IP restrictions, diversity and inclusion, right? You want to make sure that that doesn't do anything funny, and then the quality of pacing and everything will get there. So I do see eventually it's going to be all about the prompt, and the prompt will actually basically create a very end-to-end of a video that will perform,
Okay.
and that's going to be pretty interesting to monitor.
And could you shed some light on the tech stack?
Yeah, we are kind of an Amazon shop, I would say, like service-oriented architecture. We use a lot of different technologies when it comes to modeling. We use Python with SageMaker to kind of run those models as well. We do have our own kind of instances of services that we expose, like in service-oriented architecture. We adopted a new framework. It's an open source for the backend called Nest.js, which been pretty awesome for us. It just gives you all the power almost for kind of the Java stack, but in TypeScript. So all the MVC and all those controllers, which were and front end we use React as well. And now our Adobe plugin is also part of the stack, becomes like a React application as well. And we do use the different databases. Just to adhere both for NoSQL for high scale and then transactional MySQL as well for the metadata.
It's a very varied tech stack, I guess. At this scale, you can't focus on one or two technologies only. And
Yeah.
Mickey, I mean, we might come back a bit later to VidMob, but in the meantime, I'm very very interested into your career. I think when I look at your LinkedIn preparing for this interview, I think I counted 5 exits, which is the definition of serial entrepreneur. So I'm very interested for you to tell us more about your journey.
Awesome. I think it's kind of more 4 exits. Like maybe the first one was just an employee. Um,
Okay.
yeah. So I started the first company that I decided to uh, be an entrepreneur 2010, where basically I looked at the market. We was going through a recession. I was an engineer that working in a startup company, and I decided to kind of try and really build my own company, which taught me a lot throughout that experience. That you have so many challenges. You need to think about the right idea. You need to execute with the right technology. You need to have the product market fit, and then you have the go-to-market fit challenge as well. So I really like the fact that you need to learn a bunch of different principles or topics that to truly be successful. Bootstrap was amazing experience because it's really you can drive all the decisions. There's no board, but it's also very very painful, right? It's just every decision is it's all everything you've got.
Yeah.
So that experience was great. First company was about web personalization, helping actually big companies understand their inbound traffic to the website, optimize it, drive conversion. That company I moved to Silicon Valley to open a branch, and then ended up selling the company to Marketo. Um, in Marketo, I suddenly got like for managing a small, startup with a lot of like really not a lot, like small, really strong engineering team and product, to much larger scale public company growing fast, and dealing with like different tech stack. So it was really an amazing experience to me to be exposed to Silicon Valley and how marketing is done at high scale. Went through a lot of technological challenges.
Yeah.
uh, every 2 years or 3 years, you need to throw all the stack and adopt a new one. And back then, if you remember, 2010 is where Amazon was still offline compute, was not really even 24/7. So many companies,
Yeah.
even Marketo, had their local cloud as opposed to using public cloud. So it was really interesting challenge, and I feel like Marketo, I've learned about scale. Um, After Marketo was sold to Adobe, I started another company focusing on product experience, because I feel like the product is really essential to success of a company. And I sold that company to Gainsight. Gainsight got acquired as well. And then I kind of saw VidMob, which to me was like truly, I was looking for truly an AI at core company.
Mm-hmm.
And while everybody's saying AI and everybody's using kind of API, VidMob is truly building unique models, serving very clear purpose. And it's like was the fact that that's what we sell and that's what we do, was very fascinating to me to join. And
But
it's another category leader, I believe, that exposed like a new market that didn't
but
exist
that,
before.
that, that I mean that's super interesting, and like for what I can't help but wonder when you say all of that is that you've been an entrepreneur so long in so many different ventures. How do you go back to not being the founder in the house? Like how do you respond to that? How do you like, is it a difficult mental shift for you, and like why did you do it?
Yeah, it is. I think it's first, usually if you're in a startup environment, and like so I think the being a founder or not, you're going to be in a very dynamic, changing, where entrepreneurs like to have like difficult challenges to go solve, and the environment should be dynamic, and we are not scared when things are not stable. So I think it's like where I experienced that in Marketo, Gainsight, every category leader, you're going to go through that. It's mental shift towards, yeah, you don't call all the shots, but I think it's also, every company has a challenge. I think as a founder, you have other challenges where everything, as a CEO founder, everything goes to you eventually. Anything that is not solved now, it's on you. So I think I'm balancing that with the fact that I'm really focusing on where my passion is, which is product and technology and UX, versus looking and focusing on the go-to-market and others. I do find myself sometimes like not playing my position. But the team is great, and it's great to collaborate with.
Interesting as well. These so you had four companies that were acquired, and I'm just thinking about some of the people that are probably listening to this, or it's tech scale ups or startups, people who tend to be very focused on acquisition or some exit. And I'm just wondering, was there any sort of ingredient that you would identify across those companies that made them attractive for acquisition, or was it simply the fact that you'd created something very, very unique that was attractive in a specific market?
Yeah, it's a good question. Is it like luck, or is it like science, or is it like I think it's a combination. I can see similar patterns in the companies. Number one, the founders were really hardworking people. Like they would not stop at any challenge. And it's very challenging putting yourself
Yeah.
out there, and people will tell you, this is not really even needed. It's like it's not a good idea. What the heck? So it's like you have to really believe and understand and see that signal, and power through those stages. So I think definitely the founders, their passion around the idea, and the way they can actually bounce back from like those type of setbacks was definitely something notable. I think that the other aspect is the market, which you don't really control. Like when will they actually prioritize your solution? You might have like fantastic solution. I've been part of startup. The solution was amazing, but with the timing, it was not the first priority to go solve. So even if you show amazing ROI and everything, it doesn't mean that someone will buy it, because right now it's second priority. So I when I went into marketing automation or customer experience, and so it also I saw signals in the market, and to me it's like this is a good signal to go into that. So I do not
Yeah,
like
yeah,
blue
yeah,
oceans. I would not go, because then you need to wait for the market to grow, and that takes billions of dollars and time. So I
yeah,
do find those signals
yeah.
are very relevant. So you're seeing actually multiple competition. I love that, because it means that there's some signals, and you can disrupt by better technology, better features, better vision. Also engaging with thought leadership and community. There's a lot of things you can do. I think the other aspect is the companies that did beyond the product. So Marketo and Gainsight also build a community around the roles. As a category leader, you can build a community and like basically engage and teach them how they should think about the space, and endorse other players in the market to build that community, because everybody wins, as opposed to go in like kill throw type of competition. Just like be embracing that and invest also in the community.
Hmm. Yeah, you said, I think you said at the beginning something about one of the things that they had in common was, entrepreneurs working really hard. And you just reminded me, I think it was the comedian Ricky Gervais. Somebody asked him, did he consider himself lucky? And he said, yeah, it's funny. The harder that I work, the luckier I am. And I think it's a true statement.
Yeah, but there's definitely luck in this scenario, because there's so many scenarios where almost something terrible could have happened or something good could have happened.
Yeah,
I
sure.
can tell you that
Yeah.
all the exits were not necessarily planned. We were just like focusing on what we're doing without thinking about the exit, and it came just very naturally somehow, and we were surprised about those exits. So I think it's just like you can't really plan and think about exit and just look for that. You need to continue to do a great job of your business. Think also about the sustainability of the business, and because usually when it comes, it's like you're ready for it, and if it fails, you continue to run the business as well.
Yeah. But I think certainly the amount of work that you would have to put in is what creates the opportunity, right? I mean, yes, somebody, you might meet someone at a business event or at a bus stop in just some random way. But if you hadn't put all that work in, 60 out, whatever it is, you wouldn't create that opportunity, right?
Absolutely. I think that you're competing in many, with many different vendors. And the more hours you put in, the better, the stronger insights and more outcome. And like
Yeah.
I think there's a big difference if you're just coming in. I've never seen like a massive exit where people just were there, doing the 8 to 5 kind of job, and or 9 to 5 job, and like it was just happening to them. It's never that story. It's always like, a lot of
Mhm.
ups and downs, and a lot of like struggles and a lot of like efforts. And then, it came. But also, again, I think you should watch the market, because again, you cannot control that as well. So
And before moving to your book, I have a last question on this. Is that so? You from Tel Aviv, or at least you started working there, and it's often seen as a big tech slash startup powerhouse hub. And you opened after moving to San Francisco. You kept opening and working in San Francisco. So is it what some people say, that San Francisco really beats everyone even today when another city is presented as a tech hub? It just can't compete.
I believe that I'm seeing more and more, like in the past, yes, I think California and San Francisco was very friendly to entrepreneurship, also just very friendly to kind of having people migrate and just making sure that everything works. But today, I think it's a very global world. I see anywhere in
Okay.
Europe, more and more kind of areas that you see more. Scandinavia as well, like West Europe as well. Like you see a lot of entrepreneurs and like more ecosystem around that. I do feel like, yeah, maybe it's Israel is a lot of immigrants as well, and California also has a lot of immigrants. And I think if you pull immigrants in, you're going to get a lot of like passion around
Yeah.
entrepreneurship as part of that. The uniqueness about Israel is you do not have a local market. So it's a forcing function to succeed. You have to understand and go globally. Otherwise, you're just not going to survive. If I'm starting something in the US, I can just drive in 10 minutes and meet so many
Yeah.
large
Yeah.
clients. Where in Israel, you have to think scale and you have to go global very
No,
quickly
that makes a lot
to
of
make it.
sense. And actually, funnily enough, the last time we had somebody presenting their own book was also an Israeli, was Aviv Ben Yosef. And today, so you're presenting us your book called Mastering Product Experience: How to Deliver Personalized Product
Mhm.
Experiences with a Product-Led Strategy. And I think you co-authored with Nick Bonfiglio, if Amazon is correct.
Yes, yes, and Mick Bono as well. Like we were three. One of the things is like really good for entrepreneurs if you have the luxury. It was the kind of second time, so I got funding pretty easily, and
Yeah.
I also had the time and resources to also think about building. And ChatGPT did not exist, so it was truly writing the book.
Mm-hmm.
It helps you distill your work, like what type of product, what is the use case, how do you like envision it
Yeah.
coming up. And back then it was 2016 writing out PLG, and I think 2019 2020 it became the biggest trend. That PLG is one of the biggest trends in software, like because
Mm-hmm.
people realize that there's a better way to go to market, and how the product is impacting anywhere from customer acquisition to adoption, expansion, cross sell. And I think I'm going to see it more and more. Like customers expect a lot of self service. You need to look at your efficiencies, and the product is a really great vehicle to learn about your user experience, to get those user feedback, to see, to also drive consumption based pricing. So I do see it as like where marketing automation helps scale marketing. Product
Yeah.
experience is helping you scale and understand the product. Um, and the same way I see, VidMob in creative is always like opening like an area that you just didn't look before. So companies that do not understand the product usage data and understand how the product drives revenue, it's going to be very hard for them to succeed and be profitable. Companies don't look at the creative elements, just the targeting, are missing out of like if you put just bad assets and then drive your decisions and the way you actually have your MMM strategy, for
Yeah.
example, without the creative quality aspect, you're not really looking at the full data set. So I think it's like opening, that area is going to be, I think, game changer. That's what I believe. So yeah, but I'm definitely passionate about a product, and we are also doing that in VidMob. We
Mm-hmm.
improved our user experience. We built three different sub products
Yeah.
to allow customers to start and expand as they need, as opposed to give them one big platform they need to kind of digest. So it's been pretty interesting.
Your book, if I remember, is focused for SaaS businesses, and I'm just wondering, what do you think the key differences are between doing software as a service, versus a traditional software product? What do you think people get wrong building those two types of
Yeah, I
things?
think a perpetual kind of model is already dead. I don't see like the SaaS model is just easier for clients to start. Obviously, as years goes by, the expectation is getting to like almost a free sign up or like trials and things like that before they buy. So it's a change of the customer expectation and behavior. I think you want to try the solution before you take a decision. You want to see the product. I think product led is like show them that product before they buy so they can evaluate. And so it's all about reducing friction. I think SaaS is a great way to reduce risk and friction to the client. And if you don't adopt this model, if you're not looking at even consumption based pricing, you're going to be in trouble as soon as you get competition, because usually when competition comes, the
Mm.
race is going to be down to the consumption based pricing and the margins and your velocity and the value. And one of the key elements in SaaS is to make sure that you're able to sustain clients, right? Because it's all about recurring revenue. So it's another thing that you want to make sure that is happening. But the best part in SaaS, it's like if you have good retention numbers, you're not starting from scratch every quarter and every year. You have always a recurring revenue,
Yeah.
and then as soon as if your net revenue retention is above 100%, this is you becoming kind of hyper growth. Um, but to get there, definitely you need to think about a lot. I think the SaaS revolution drove us to really run the software, take care of security, backups, maintenance, performance. It's way more challenging than just like a downloadable software. It's like fire and forget.
Your engineering blog that you have on your website, they were talking about how you built a dashboard in 2 weeks. And there's an optimize button on it. I read the article. I think there was a video attached, and it said that you were overlaying the performance, so the video performance, with a frame by frame analysis, and the whole thing was built in 2 weeks, is what they said. And I was pretty amazed by that. I thought that's pretty impressive to build that in 2 weeks. And I'm assuming that some of the things like the back end data was already in place, but I don't know. I was just curious as to how you did that so fast.
Yeah, I think today we're using obviously we use Copilot and like when we code and everything. So that's like really helping us to when you know what you really want to build today, and you use like frameworks like Nest.js and like React and like Copilot. Every engineer is like a super engineer, and like if you know what you want to build, and it's like it's a display challenge, that should be like 2 weeks. That should not create like any especially around dashboard and reporting and so forth. It's something that is like exposing your data and focusing on visualization. We do use a lot of even visualization wise, we use a lot of like frameworks anywhere from MUI, which was very great for us to just like adopt as a UI framework. It has a lot of proven patterns to any visualization, like high charts and others for dashboarding.
What framework was that? Sorry, I'm not familiar with that. What did you say?
High charts, and there's a lot of like graphic visualization you can use today to show those time series and others.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of like really cool looking that you just adopt and just use them.
Oh, so is that like QuickSight? Is it like Amazon's QuickSight? Is it a similar kind of thing?
Yeah, we think like components, and like you basically can just those libraries component you use, and there's a lot of components out there that allows you to kind of customize and integrate and make them look and feel as your product. But the time to value is immensely fast when you use that. I do advise the UX always to look at libraries, look at the designs out there, and then customize to put our own flavor. But just it's very helpful to really nail the first experience by just learning about those user experience patterns and things like that. Then when you give engineers the library and here's how it should behave, it reduces the time dramatically and the quality stays pretty high.
Yeah, I mean, definitely seeing how your users interact with it and going through an iterative process there is a great way of doing it. Definitely.
We actually built the leaderboard. We have like a leaderboard that shows you all your assets across all these platforms and the way they actually perform in a very short time. And that was like from understanding the need with clients to execute that. It was very, very short time. But yeah, we did have the data. It's actually the visualization and the backend. When you use frameworks, it just helps engineers move very, very fast. They know which component goes where, and it actually becomes kind of pixel perfect when it's actually you see it as well.
And that's very very interesting to see that scale, especially as you've had experience both starting from scratch and building at scale now. So Mickey, that will conclude today's podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Happy. Thank you for having me.
And to everybody listening, we'll be back in 2 weeks. Bye bye.